Welcome to tonight's HBCU Monday edition of the Klown Podcast. I'm Scott Burks. Please check me out at www.theclowntimes.net. That's Clown Spirit with K, as you can see here on my hat. And speaking of the hat, please go check out my merch at cafepress.com. Search for the Clown Time Sports. There will be a link in the description below. You find the gear there as well. Also, you can check me out on Facebook. So whether you're your smartphone, laptop, desktop, wherever you are, wherever you may be, just type in the Clown Times. Again, that's Clown Spirit with K. You'll find me there as well. I got some interesting posts regarding the Cleveland Browns and the Old Bay season you need to check out. So I promise to be hilarious. If you know, you know. If not, just Twitter for it, Google it, you'll find it, you see it. But anyway, one last thing before I get this started here and introduce my partner. He's back in the house. Please continue to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Even if you don't like what we have to say, you may not like what we have to say tonight, but I encourage it. Remember, there was a revenge show last week. Dwayne responding to his critics and trolls. But look, we love the back and forth. So, I mean, especially when we talk about all things HBCU athletics, we get everybody in the mama out the woodwork. So that's cool with us. But either way, whether you like us or not, you comment, like, share, and subscribe. You'll be glad you did, and I'll be glad you did. All right. Speaking of HBCU athletics, y'all know my partner every HBCU Monday when we have on Mondays. Y'all know him from the yard, such as HBCU Sports, and reps for all things HBCU Sports. It's with Sleazy Ritter every Tuesday night on Facebook Live, and YouTube. And last but not least, his great work on HeroSports.com. The rest are all things FCS athletics. There we go. As they pertain to HBCUs. The one and only Dwayne Nash is back in the house to talk some SWAC, MEAC, and other good stuff. So what's going on, sir? How you doing?
Man, I'm good, man. You know, but according to these people out here in these streets, I shouldn't be talking SWAC because I ain't SWAC.
Yeah, you ain't SWAC. Which is
I had to do it one more time this year. I had to do it at least one more time this year. I'm done with the who SWAC, who ain't SWAC. But I find it a little funny. Scott, did you see the commercial? There's a commercial out where the coaches all talk about the greatness of the SWAC.
Okay.
And at the end, it's Coach Sanders with the tagline, "We are SWAC." Nice. Yeah, so I know people who saw that, depending upon what side of the argument.
About to say, if it's Coach Eddie Robinson, if it's Coach Eddie Robinson Jr., I'm sure he's not too thrilled about it. But hey, he started it, and he made himself a little more famous, so it is what it is. Or infamous, depending on what side of the line you are. But anyway,
I'll say this: one, I'm hoping Coach Rob has gotten over it. Two, he got bigger fish on his plate this week because it's Magic City Classic time. For Alabama and Alabama State. So yeah, they got.
He better win that one. About. He better win that one. I know he's an alum and
he already know.
Yeah, he knows. He
already know.
He's an alum. He knows. No question about that. All right, speaking of SWAC, let's get to it, man. We talked about last week. We was like talking about out of conference play in HBCUs, particularly on the FCS level, where we've been getting not shellacked, but boat race in some cases. Now Central has done the SWAC because we ain't SWAC, right? But anyway, because I'm not going to say it. This is not anybody's business, but hey, the MEAC Central beat down New Hampshire on the road, and New Hampshire's ranked, by the way. In this week's poll, number 25. They're 6-2. The Central whooped that ass. But hey, that's not my business. But anyway, but the SWAC had a shot this week where at Jackson State's homecoming, they welcomed in Campbell University, the Fighting Campbells, who was at the time was on a roll. Those guys are legit. They're 4-3, but don't let that 4-3 record fool you. Those guys are legit. So needless to say, when in the first quarter when that went up 7-3, they being the Camels. Went up 7-3, I think, oh, here we go. But then Jackson State rebounded nicely, held on for a 22-14 win. And basically, man, it's like it was an ugly game. Like I kind of figured it would be because, again, that's what happens. We have two great teams at FCS level. Campbell just mucked it up defensively. But dig this though, they forced 2 turnovers from Jackson State, but Jackson State outgained them 111 to 247 yards, more first downs, 20-13, and held the ball 5 minutes longer. So all in all, it was a great win for Jackson State, who is now ranked in the top 5 in the FCS polls. Now, I don't know the HBCU that was highest and ranked in history in the FCS coaches poll, but it'd be hard pressed to see some that have bested Jackson State's number 5 rank. So based upon this, man, what do you like? Was this a bigger win for the SWAC as people are making out to be, or just business as usual for Jackson State?
Wow. Depends on who you talk to, right? I find it interesting that a lot of people are coming out saying this is a big win, when there was a huge debate on social media just last week between the Jackson State fans and the Campbell fans about whose strength of schedule to this point was weaker. Now, one thing we can't debate is that coming into the season, both teams had the top 2 recruiting classes coming into this year. That's something we do know, right? That's fact. Jackson State, of course, coming into the game, top 10 ranked, actually 6th. And of course, like you said, Campbell has been on a run, beating, and I'm gonna put it nicely, some of the bottom feeders in the Big South. But again, they're winning games in that recruiting class that everyone's been talking about. Coming into this matchup, actually, before the season started and when I first heard about the matchup, I referred to this as the Streets is Watching game. Everyone out there who is familiar with Jay-Z and his classic Streets is Watching knows the intro to that song.
Right.
If I shoot you, I'm brainless, but if you kill me, you'll be famous. What's a brother to do? I saw this game as the same thing. As Howley told it, as Jackson State was coming into this year, not knowing back then that they would have come into this game being ranked 6th in the nation. I saw this game as a kind of a lose-lose situation, but those who were going to be JSU fans and potentially those within the SWAC were going to celebrate this win. Because, and the reason why I compared it as Streets Watching is, if Campbell were to beat Jackson State, they famous, they big time. Oh my God, they went in on their homecoming and killed the giant, slayed the giant. Jackson State wins, of course, they'll be celebrated for having that out-of-conference win against a 4-win team. But you got to remember, Campbell's not ranked. You talked about the low strength of schedule of those guys. So those that are looking at those optics would say they were supposed to beat Campbell. And they beat Campbell the way in which I thought they would, or thought they should at least. Which is to run the ball. When you're 19th worst in the nation, excuse the spit, had a little spittle come out just then. If you're 19th worst in the nation,
you're good.
Against the run, please run on them, which they did. And they ran for over 180 yards, which was what they were supposed to do. And they overcame those 2 turnovers that you talked about. They overcame going 2 of 14 on 3rd downs. You know, they overcame that red zone interception. One of the dudes who I've been celebrating all year long is someone that Deion Sanders celebrated today during the weekly press conference, which is their kicker, Alejandro Mata. If you're familiar with their kicking games from last year, these Bamas were like, 3 of 9 of field goal attempts past the 30. Alejandro is most definitely surpassed that already. And his kicking percentage is most definitely high, with the exception, of course, that block they had, the extra point that they had blocked. And of course, Coach Sanders jokingly said that the dude that let that block go, he's going to cut him. Well, maybe he did cut him. I don't know. Who knows? But
for the scholarship.
Yeah, right. So shout out to Alejandro and his play. He's most definitely given Coach Sanders and the Tigers a weapon that they most definitely did not have last year, and an area of improvement that they needed to fill. And that's something that Sanders most definitely looked to do in all of his holes from last year to this year. But with all of that said, you still can't take away the fact that, like I said before, depending upon who you look at, Campbell being the top recruiting class coming in the nation coming into the season, everyone talking about how good this team could potentially be, and they still could be. They have a conference championship, which I'm looking at as a de facto championship game coming up this weekend at another HBCU homecoming when they go to face A&T in Greensboro this weekend. So, that measuring stick. If A&T comes up short, that's something else that Jackson State fans can go ahead and throw in the face of the A&T faithful that, hey, we did something this year that you didn't do. But at the same time, Jackson can also say that they beat a team that is championship caliber, that is looking to potentially move on as an automatic qualifier if they're capable of beating A&T this weekend. Jackson State can go ahead and pin that feather in their cap as something that they haven't done, or someone in the SWAC hasn't done quite often, especially in recent years, which is to beat an out-of-conference opponent on the FCS level. And also congratulations to Prairie View A&M, who got their big win over Lamar this past weekend too. Another out-of-conference dub.
Yeah, that was big too. Well, I will say this about Campbell: they do still have that big win over Central. And Central's 5-2. We know how good Central is. So that was a damn good win by Campbell as well. But to your point, it's kind of like looking at the glass half empty and half full. You know what I mean? Like if you're Jackson State, if you're the SWAC, you can look at the Campbell game and say, hey, they beat another great team that which we may see in the Celebration Bowl if we were to get that far in Central, North Carolina Central. Beat them pretty handily. Again, this is the same Central team that beat down the University of New Hampshire, who's now ranked 25th in the FCS coaches poll. Now, I would argue that if Central had held on to beat South Carolina State, we'll talk about that later, right? We're not going to talk about that. We'll talk about later. They would probably be ranked right now as well. So, either way, I think this is good for Jackson State. Now, speaking of Jackson State and the SWAC, that leads us into what's coming up this coming weekend, where ESPN Gameday, built by the Home Depot, announced that they will be making the pilgrimage and the visit to Jackson, Mississippi for the Southern and Jackson State tilt. I thought it's going to be awesome with a capital A. Shout out to Dick Vitale. And I mean, you got I think Southern is 5-2 on the season. And, of course, Jackson's undefeated, ranked 5th in the nation. You got all eyes on Jackson, Mississippi. You got all eyes on both bands, which are spectacular, by the way. If you haven't checked them out, please YouTube that shit. And, of course, the Baldwin and Bailey that is Coach Prime. So I'm picturing a scene where you got Desmond Howard, Reese Davis, Mike, I think his name is Mike Pollock. And man, can you imagine having Coach Prime and Pat McAfee on the same set? We may get that this weekend in Jackson. We may get that, which that would be must-see TV right there. And you know that the SWAC has to be hella happy about this. Because not only are you putting up your best in Jackson State, you putting up your second best and who was also a big brand in Southern, which is why I say this every damn week. I swear I say it. And I sound like a broken ass record. I think you know where I'm going with this. But the SWAC sitting on top of a gold. They got the show, they have the brands, they got the product, and they got game day coming to their city. So it's great to be a fan of SWAC. That's all I got to say. Especially Jackson State and Southern.
Yeah. So to your point, First and foremost, this is a great opportunity for America to be introduced to a SWAC rivalry that a lot of people outside of the SWAC aren't familiar with. Of course, everyone's going to look at, or everyone knows about Southern and Grambling because of course, the Bayou Classic.
Correct.
And then, of course, they know about the in-state rivalry with Mississippi Valley State with Jackson State, of course, right? Oh, man. This year, like you said, well, not this year, but this week, you get that matchup of Southern, who's in the midst of battling for the West Division title right now with Prairie View A&M. They both have 1 losses, and actually Southern has that loss to Prairie View A&M. So they're going to need a little bit of help in order for this game that we're going to see on game day to be a SWAC championship game preview.
Right.
Now, the only reason why it probably isn't SWAC, well, not SWAC, but Jackson State and Prairie View A&M 40 and slip by calling SWAC, calling Jackson State SWAC, but that's another conversation for another time. But the reason why it's probably not Jackson State and Prairie View is because they're not playing each other this regular season. And I'm thinking that would have been a wonderful place for them to have college game day as opposed to Southern. But I understand, again, because of that rivalry, one. But you also get that potential title game preview this weekend too. So I'm not squatting on this game, not at all. I'm just saying, as of right now, based upon the fact that Prairie View currently has the lead, and they have the easiest strength of schedule for the remaining games, that it could be because any given Saturday, right? Anything can happen. But if they were capable of just going through their opponents of who they have for the remainder of the schedule, they should be going on to see Jackson State in the title game, probably in Jackson, Mississippi. But with that said, you have Coach Sanders on 60 Minutes, not this past Sunday, but the Sunday prior.
Yeah.
You have Jackson State on Good Morning America. It's their
homecoming. Yeah.
All the celebrities came out. I don't know if you saw the leather luxury seats that they had on the sidelines. My man Snoop Dogg was out there crip walking with the football team.
Everybody's he was in the huddle. They showed him in the locker room pregame.
Yeah.
Like when Dion was delivering his speech, so that was hella good. But go ahead.
Oh yeah, Rick Ross was down there for homecoming and all that. The stars were bright down in Jackson, Mississippi. So it's a time for them. And then you got college game day coming the following week. Are you kidding me? Jackson State is most definitely getting that exposure this year, but you already know how I feel about exposure bucks. That's another conversation for another time. Yeah. But I am happy that they are getting this. But to your point, I hope that they're learning to be able to sustain this for years to come.
Right.
I'm not even saying whether or not Dion leaves or not. He can still be there. I still want the conference and other HBCU conferences as well to learn from this and learn how to generate not only exposure, but revenue from said exposure so they can continue to sustain themselves a lot better than what they currently are doing right now. So that's what I'm hoping for. Yes, hooray is being done, but I want to see the fruits of said labor too.
Well said, because we have a friend, I think we both follow, she follows both of us, who specializes in like finding like NIL deals. But she talks a lot about HBCUs, particularly in the SWAC, especially since they're the flavor of the month for a long time, of not knowing their worth. Because we always said this, we see it in the Power Five. I'm not saying, again, folks out there, I'm not going to speak for Dwayne, but I'm not saying that we could compete on a Power Five level. Hell to the no. They had how many year head start ahead of us, our schools? That's not going to happen, at least not anytime soon. But we talked about also how those Power Fives get the bigger contracts because, Randy, the SEC, How many brands does the SEC have? Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Tennessee, Florida, even Auburn in certain years.
Yeah.
Ole
But let
Miss.
me amend that real quick, Scott.
Okay.
It's not just the fact that of their branding,
Mm-hmm.
it's the following that comes with it.
Yes.
And the revenue that comes with it.
Yes.
Now, it has to, and the understanding of that following and revenue that comes along with it. So if HBCUs can get a little bit more understanding of the following that they can generate and transfer that over into bucks and let them know that, hey, this black demographic that's out here spends a lot of money. Matter of fact, we are the most we do spend the most money as a demographic in terms of black people.
Yeah.
So if there's a way for them to relay that into their negotiations of any type, be it, your paid games, the amount of revenue that you receive from advertising dollars. And my thing is, everyone loves to bring up Power Five. Start getting on the level of those top tier teams and programs and conferences on the FCS level.
North Dakota State.
When you talk about your North Dakota State, you talk about what's going on in the CIAA. You talk about the revenue that they generate on an annual basis, and how, in most cases, it at least doubles what we're doing at HBCUs. I'm trying to figure out how is that the case.
Yeah. I'll say
I'm not scratching my beard because it's itchy. That's just me
pondering.
That's my pondering face.
There you go.
How is that possible?
He's a thinker like this.
Yeah, or why is that possible? And I need for someone who has a better business mind to explain that for us in the comments on why that's the case. But my thing is, these institutions again have that history behind them. We had that following. My belief, and I would love to talk to an AD or a commissioner about this and have this understanding, because all we can do is basically go off of their moves, right, and use that as an assessment of their thought process. But have an understanding from them, the decision makers, on why it's a situation where it seems as though that HBCUs in terms of negotiations come up on the short side of the stick.
Yeah, I would love to have someone come to the show to explain it to both of us. I think that would be excellent. I think we may know a couple of people on Twitter who's real big in that, between the two of us, who could explain that to us and break it down for the viewers out there. Because I think, again, when I say we, I mean IHB students. We are at a crossroads right now. We are feeling popularity right now that is unprecedented. We, with the help of a unicorn named Deion Sanders, and all this groundswell again, because the SWAC, they got the brands on the FCS level. They got people know who Grambling is. People know who Southern is from the Bayou Classic. People know who Jack State is, obviously. People know who Alcorn State is, for those of you who appreciate history. They know, some people know about Alabama A&M. A lot of people know about Florida A&M. That's for goddamn sure. So the brands are right there. They're right there. And, as you said something about the following, I could not agree with you more, man. Because, hey, we love our HBCUs, but we gotta let our money, we gotta put our mouths where our money is. We gotta show up. We gotta keep supporting these young men in football. We have to continue to do that, because again, it's all about sustainable success. It's like, you got it right now. Jackson State's ranked 5th in the country, but you have to sustain that. And so, what better way to sustain that is to get more groundswell as far as fan support, show up at these games. I mean, hell, we know that the SWAC is killing it in the FCS in terms of attendance every year, even before Coach Prime. They were killing it. People don't know that because the people weren't paying attention to it as they are now.
Yeah.
So again, once we see ESPN Gameday, built by the Home Depot, in Jackson, Mississippi, they're going to see the crowds. They're going to pan out and see the crowds. They're going to see Mississippi Veterans Stadium. They're going to see the Sonic Boom. They're going to see Southern's. They're going to see all of that. All that culture that we love, grew up loving, experienced it firsthand, right? With both A&T grads, seeing it firsthand. The rest of America gets to see it at during game day when a lot of people are watching. That is awesome.
And to your point, I find it interesting that coaches that weren't participating in Saturday's matchup. Well, actually, no, Dooley. They did ask Coach Dooley about it, but they also asked Coach Fred McNair about the appearance of ESPN Game Day in Jackson, Mississippi this upcoming week. And their responses were, they get a chance to see something that we've been saying has been great for years.
Right.
We knew about these matchups. We know about the competition within the conference. Now, finally, they get to come and see what we've known for years. Right.
Well said. Well said. All right. Before we hit the MEAC, the MEAC rather, let me just give a quick shout out to our sponsors here at BetUs.com. So for those bettors out there who look to bet on to college sports, even at HBCU level, check this out. So listen up, sports bettors. Your favorite sportsbook, BetUs.com, is back for our 20th year of action with the industry's biggest sign-up bonus up to 200%. BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, UFC, and MLB. So if you're looking for live in-game betting, credible odds with daily odds boosters, props, and parlays, we got it. And how about fast payouts and exceptional one-on-one customer service? We got that too. So log into betus.com or call 800-792-3887. That's 800-79-BET-US. Please use the promo code TKT for the Klown Towns as well. So betus.com, where the game begins. All right, let's throw it over to MEAC quickly. We had a showdown of sorts in the MEAC over the weekend. North Carolina Central, that is, at South Carolina State. Central came into the game 5-1, unbeaten in the conference. South Carolina State's been kind of scuttling a little bit along the way, but South Carolina State came up with a win, which some may call it an upset, 26-24. They scored in the early in the fourth quarter, but they held on for the win. The quarterback, what's his name? Corey Fields, threw for 264 yards, 3 touchdowns, so 20 on 31 passing. Meanwhile, his counterpart, Davius Richard, had a uneven game, 11-24, 37 yards, 2 touchdowns and a pick. So this was a big win for South Carolina State, but it was like a bad loss to Central because, again, Central looked like it was running away with the MEAC. So does this open up the MEAC race now that South Carolina State pulled off the upset against Central?
Sure does. And I've been saying this since before the season started for the MEAC. Any given Saturday. Right? And going into it, I felt as though that, South Carolina State, even though they were, a couple of guys who graduated and moved on, were still going to be competitive. Right. Central was picked to finish second. I didn't think that they was going to be as good as they are now, but they were still going to be cause fits in the conference.
Right.
Delaware State, that had top-ranked defense last year coming into this year, I thought that they could cause fits. Howard, another year within that offense for quarterback Quentin Williams, and that improving defense, I thought that they could cause problems. Damon Wilson, new head coach over at Morgan State, I thought that he might be able to surprise people every now and again, but he has a very new team, and he, had only been there a short period of time. But again, it's a 5-game race. Anything can happen within them 5 games. Dawson Odoms, that has championship pedigree, I thought that he could probably, cause some fits. So I just thought that the entire conference was wide open and easy for the picking. So I'm not surprised, but I did pick Central to win that game. But yeah, when just a couple of things that happened, they just even though South Carolina State got outplayed, they still were capable of getting away with that win.
Yeah, and it's good to win as South Carolina State and Buddy Pugh. That Central's going to come out pissed off next week, right? And they're going to Delaware State. They're going to be pissed. Now that may be a woodshed game, but you never know. Again, any given Saturday, you never know. And I know it's going to be a road game, but I think Central is the most talented squad in the MEAC. I think that really is the best team in the MEAC right now, to be honest with you. And things may get ugly for Delaware State for the home team. But I'll say this, man, before we move on. The ESPN executives somewhere are salivating at the possibility of a Central and Jackson State celebration bowl. And that's going to be highly attended.
The Jackson State fans are salivating for this because they're looking at a potential redemption. But to get to the point about this game this past weekend, South Carolina State gave up almost 250 yards rushing, but with the turnovers and the 2 missed field goals, especially if you miss 2 field goals and you lose by 2 again.
Yeah,
you lose that one on the field, Bubba. Yeah,
that's too bad about that. All right, quickly, I know you got some tidbits about the CIAA as far as news that we could use as far as football. So why don't you go ahead and bless us with that, sir?
Just real quick, as of right now, Virginia Union is most definitely not most definitely, but they're undefeated in conference play right now. The 6-0. They look like they have the conference wrapped up just about, right? But they have a huge matchup this upcoming weekend against Shawan, who only has 1 loss within the conference themselves, who just had a big win over Bowie State this past weekend. Okay. So the winner of that game will be that division's representative going into the CIAA championship game in a couple of weeks to face Fayetteville State.
Nice. So that'll be good because to your point, that's gonna be huge. Because both squads are undefeated, right? Union and Shawan are undefeated right now.
Shawan has the 1 loss.
Oh, I thought. Yeah. I'm looking at the wrong one. I'm looking at the division break. I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right about that. They got the 1 loss. They're undefeated in the division. But the 1 conference loss. I see it. So and Fayetteville State's doing the damn thing too. So that should be entertaining to see. So we'll definitely look forward to that. All right, man. So we can call right now. So tell the folks again where they could find you and when to tune into you. Well, first of all, where they could find you on social media.
All right, you can always find me at VYardHBCU, all one word, on all platforms of social media. You can find me at herosports.com, where I have my weekly picks and predictions. You might not want to follow last week's predictions. Worst week of the season. I went 7-4 last week. Oh my God, I stunk up the joint. With getting surprised by South Carolina State's home win against Central, getting surprised by Del State taking that L on the road at Howard's homecoming. Who knew that Howard will put up the most points of the season against the number 1 ranked defense in the conference? And then, oh my God, Alcorn State getting surprised by Texas Southern at their homecoming. Ooh. Yeah. So,
I'm glad.
It's been a lot of surprises, man. There, with my picks as of last week. I'm looking to do better this week. So I'm over here looking at my head and my heart, making that A&T versus Campbell pick right now. Where do I go? But again, understanding what certain teams' weaknesses and strengths are, I'll go ahead and make my pick based upon that. But we'll have to wait and see. And for those of you who are going to be in Greensboro this weekend, say what's up to your boy. I'll be there.
There you go. The greatest homecoming on earth, the GHOE. You know what?
Scott said that. I didn't say that. But I'm not fighting that sentiment, though. Yeah, I'm not fighting it, though.
I've yet to be back at homecoming since my son was born. It's 12 years and counting. And I won't be going this year. So I'm shooting for next year when my son turns 13, after my son turns 13. We go back there every Thanksgiving when we visit my mother for Thanksgiving. And sometimes throughout the year we go down there to see my mother, but make it happen. Next year I'm gonna make it happen. we will be at homecoming in 2023.
Well, get your tickets early. As people
Yes.
learned a few weeks ago, tickets will sell out.
That's
And
right.
then you still got people out there with their hands out like the Allstate sign. Hey, you got a ticket?
Do I
Game
put it
sells
in
out
these
every
good
day,
hands?
bro.
Am I getting hands right now? You don't get my brother some tickets in good hands. Anyway,
Can I
man,
get a ticket?
thank y'all for tuning into this podcast. Please see you like, comment, share, and subscribe. You'll be glad you did. I'll be glad you did. Check out Dwayne's great work. As you see it on the backdrop, hbcu.com. That's for all things HBCU sports. Herosports.com. That's for all things FCS athletics. That's the HBCUs. Sleazy Riddle every Tuesday night on Facebook Live and YouTube. And last but not least, check out my merch at cafepress.com. Search for Clown Time Sports. Also, www.clowntimes.net is my blog. Thank you for tuning in. Have a safe weekend. A safe evening, I should say, because the week is still young.